Hatred is a very powerful emotion, and Haman is filled with hatred towards the Jews, and it is fueled by Mordecai, stalwartly resisting paying homage to Haman. Haman comes to us as a picture of Satan, one who is highly exalted, has great authority under the king, and yet is not satisfied with that, has ambitions to be king himself, as we read in Isaiah chapter 14. Jesus called Satan the prince of this world, but Jesus was never subject to him, being the prince of heaven. So Haman has become the lead counsellor to the king, and has had the king sign a decree that the Jews can be wiped out as a people throughout the kingdom, throughout the whole world, on the 13th day of the 12th month. But that's still over 10 months away. It's good because it means the enemies of the Jews can search out the Jews in that 10 months and will do a very thorough job. But Haman can't wait every time he sees Mordecai the Jew. Mordecai has challenged Esther to speak to the king about the matter, because Esther, as the queen, can speak with the king, but not in any official capacity of the court, just as a person. But how can she do it? The boundaries of what's acceptable are very clear. She has taken her life into her hand by approaching the king unsummoned, and the king has accepted her, and she invited him to a banquet, just a small private affair with the king and Haman. And at that banquet, the king asks her again, "What's your request? I'll give you half the kingdom." And she has invited the king and Haman to come back for another banquet, saying, "And then I will tell the king what is my request." So she is keeping the king wondering what it is that Esther actually wants. But this has just fueled Haman in his ambitions. Only I was invited with the king to Esther's banquet. Esther obviously honours me with the king. But on his way home he saw Mordecai standing upright when everybody else was bowing to him, and called his friends, boasting of his promotions, but then saying, "But I'm frustrated because Mordecai the Jew still doesn't bow to me." And they suggest, well, build some gallows. And they build really high gallows, because Haman wants to make a big statement. You don't cross him. And in the morning he will go to the king first thing and get permission to have Mordecai executed. But that night the king could not sleep. So one was commanded to bring the book of the records of the Chronicles. And there they read before the king. And was found written that Mordecai had told of Bigthana and Teresh, two of the king's eunuchs, the doorkeepers who had sought to lay hand on King Ahasuerus. Then the king said, "What honour or dignity has been bestowed on Mordecai for this?" And the king's servants who attended him said, "Nothing has been done for him." So the king said, "Who is in the court?" Now Haman had just entered the outer court of the king's palace to suggest that the king hang Mordecai on the gallows that he had prepared for him. And the king's servants said to him, "Haman is there, standing in the court." And the king said, "Let him come in." So Haman came in, and the king asked him, "What shall be done for the man whom the king delights to honour?" Now Haman thought in his heart, "Whom would the king delight to honour more than me?" And Haman answered the king, "For the man whom the king delights to honour, let a royal robe be brought which the king has worn, and a horse on which the king has ridden, which has a royal crest placed on its head. Then let this robe and horse be delivered to the hand of one of the king's most noble princes, that he may array the man whom the king delights to honour. Then parade him on horseback through the city square, and proclaim before him, thus shall it be done to the man whom the king delights to honour. Then the king said to Haman, Hurry, take the robe and the horse, as you have suggested, and do so for Mordecai the Jew, who sits within the king's gate. Leave nothing undone of all that you have spoken. So Haman took the robe and the horse, arrayed Mordecai, and led him on horseback through the city square, and proclaimed before him, Thus shall it be done to the man whom the king delights to honour. Afterward Mordecai went back to the king's gate. But Haman hurried to his house, mourning with his head covered. When Haman told his wife Zeresh and all his friends everything that had happened to him, his wise men and his wife Zeresh said to him, If Mordecai, before whom you have begun to fall, is of Jewish descent, you will not prevail against him, but will surely fall before him. While they were still talking with him, the king's eunuchs came and hastened to bring Haman to the banquet which Esther had prepared. My name's Arthur, and I thank you for joining me as we see the next extraordinary episode in the story of Esther from Esther chapter 6. It's all a matter of timing, and we see that God is working in all the circumstances to rescue his people and save his people against this scheme that Haman has hatched. Haman, determined to have Mordecai killed on the gallows he had prepared, goes to the court early in the morning, only to find that the king has had a restless night and has been reading the history books all night, and had learned in the books that Mordecai had informed on two of his guards, his doorkeepers, who were planning to assassinate the king. The matter had been investigated, the guards had been found guilty, and had been executed. But the question in the king's mind was, This man has saved my life. What have I done in return for him? And he was told, Nothing. So he asks Haman, What do you think I should do to the man whom the king delights to honour? What's a good reward to someone I want to honour? And Haman thought, well, I'm the only person in the kingdom worthy of honour, and the king wants to delight me, and I know what I want. I want to be the king. So let that man be given the king's robe, riding the king's horse with the king's crest, and let there be someone going in front, saying, This is what the king does to those whom he honours. He elevates them up beside the king. He could just imagine himself walking around, looking down on the people and being honoured in this way. But the king is not privy to Haman's thoughts. The king has his own thoughts. And he thought, now that's a good idea. That's out of the box. That's different. How about you go and do that to Mordecai the Jew, who sits within the king's gate? Don't leave anything out. So Haman has now to go as the prince, a noble prince, honouring Mordecai, the one that he wants to destroy, even declaring, Thus shall it be done to the man whom the king delights to honour. What a difference a day can make in politics. He is full of himself one day, and suddenly the next day he has to do something which he must do to maintain his credibility before the king, but it is against everything that he believes. And of course his friends are all fair weather friends, and when they see that this has happened, they say, well, it's inevitable. If he is actually a Jew, then you can't win. The night before they'd saying, test your hand. Go and try and have him hung. Build the gallows. But when God is for us, who can be against us? You will not prevail against him, but will surely fall before him, they say. And now it's time for the banquet. Haman has to go through with the banquet as well. He can't pull out. The eunuchs come to take him and bring him quickly to the second banquet that Esther has prepared.